Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm trying to find beauty in the dark.
Oh, yeah? Not death first? Or du shall feist? Or whatever he said it
You
was.
went German.
That's how he sounded? Are you kidding me? That's how Lanier sounded in this episode, Rachel. I'm not crazy, you're crazy. No, let's get down to business, people. We are YumYumPodcast, likingly, because we are always yum, and we happen to be a podcast. Do I need to say more, Rachel?
No.
But you can tell us about why Yum Yum.
Why did I not see that coming?
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know why I did see it coming, but you could tell us. Why Yum Yum?
Why Yum Yum? Because Ryan loves to torture me.
No, that's not the reason. The reason is we were both sitting down
Let
and
me
we
start
saw
over.
a moment of perfect beauty.
Ryan, fuck.
2 seconds in and I already get this reaction out of you. You know it's going to be a good one today, folks.
Ryan, we are called Yum Yum Podcast after the iconic moment in Star Trek Discovery in the Season 2 finale when the iconic character Commander Nandi was asked if she would be up for going off and murdering the season's antagonist. And she said yum yum and flicked her hair and licked her lips.
Well,
and we have
yeah.
been in the wake of that moment ever since.
Well, that's the thing. You've gotten down to a routine now of how to describe the moment, but the thing that you really have to emphasize is how out of nowhere and strange and tonally off it was, so that it really reverberated into our souls as a traumatic moment, but also one that helped strengthen us as people. So we used to be a Star Trek...
Trauma can be a forge.
Oh, yeah. And so we used to be a Star Trek Discovery rewatch podcast, and now we are doing Babylon 5 as a rewatch podcast format. So that does mean if you have not seen the television series Babylon 5 before, we recommend that you do check it out because we will be getting into spoilers in our discussion here today. And today...
And you deserve to watch Babylon 5 in your own time, in your own way.
Yeah.
We suggest that you do. It's a show that we adore.
Yeah. Watch it in your own time, and then come back
free
here
of spoilers.
and then report to us that you watched it. Okay, that's your job. That's your honor that you have to fulfill upon. There was one person in this episode, Rachel. The episode is There All the Honor Lies, that would have said yum yum if written by the Star Trek Discovery writers. Only one character that I can think of. Any that pops to your mind. This is a very yum-yum-less episode, but there's one man.
Zach was bringing some YYE.
He was bringing some YYE. But, there's only one man for the job to me, but you're nominating Zach? Is that your nomination?
He's a contender.
As always.
But I think I have to go with Ashen.
Sean?
Ashen.
Interesting. My pick is not so much that, like, I get what you're saying, they got the energy, but now I'm thinking of who's the most useless character in the script, and it's Warren Keffer.
Oh,
and
not the lawyer?
No, Warren's even more useless. Warren Keffer would have said yum yum because he is this show's Commander Nandi, where you don't know why he's here, and he says lines of dialogue, and you're thinking to yourself, shouldn't somebody else be doing this? And then they're gone again, and you just scratch your head.
Yeah.
It's Kev, and boy, does he have it in this episode. He also does have YYE because he is giving a really weird performance because he's acting against
he's like,
nothing.
I've got nothing to do and no understanding. So I guess I'll just go for it.
He went for it.
He went for it. And you know who else goes for it? JMS, when he writes the episodes descriptions that go in the DVDs. Brochure.
That sounds like a Minbari name. And there's Ashan, and then there's Kalain, and then there's Brochure. So
not to be confused with brioche.
Brioche, my favorite. Episode 14, There All the Honor Lies. A Minbari warrior is dead, and Sheridan is accused of murder, all part of a vengeful plot to unseat him. But not all the stations going on are as serious, especially when hot new souvenirs hit the gift shop. This episode is written by Peter David. He returns. This is his second script out of the 2 he wrote for the show. But don't worry, he would go on to write some Babylon 5 books. I just wanted to point that out because we're going to come back to Peter David later on. But first, Rachel, walk us through what your relationship is with There All the Honor Lies.
It's an episode where I always forget what the A-plot is, and then I'm like, oh, fuck yeah! This weird thing of an episode. It's not an episode that I like a lot, but I like a lot of moments in it.
That's a way to describe it, yeah.
And I remember being really thrown off when we were doing our original watch, because I was just like, what the fuck is this episode? Because it's like a bunch of random loose ends that they've decided to chuck in all together. Like, you know what? What if they have a gift shop? And what if Sheridan is being ousted? What if Via is being ousted? What if Talia's walking through the Zocalo
and gets groped by Via? What if Kosh was here? What if there was a guy wearing a mask of an alien and then the alien's wearing a mask of a guy? Like,
what if we get some alien choir?
Yeah, what if Natoth came back, but as a different character? The actress came back. What if? Is this one of those Marvel what if shows? We both know that Peter David and JMS would go to write for Marvel at some point, or at least comic books in general. Maybe this is some foreshadowing, but you're telling me that this episode, I should say, has been a hodgepodge for you in the past.
Yes, and it still was on this viewing.
Welcome to Babylon 5, the last best hope for a quick buck.
Commander.
Oh, this is demeaning. I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
So my relationship is actually very different to that. I vividly remember the A-plot to this episode because I watched this growing up. As people know, I had the DVD, so I had the second season. And when I watched this, I was very much struck upon how different it was to the general vibe and tone of the show, and not in a good way. This reminded me of, in all honesty, this felt ahead of its time in TV in terms of, this reminded me of an episode of 24. This would have been a plot in 24 where somebody frames Kiefer Sutherland for murdering an Arab man, and then they would spin it into some kind of, now we've got to bring this in, and
the A plot.
Yeah.
The B, C, D, and E plot, not so much.
But that's what I'm saying. I remember this plot more so than any other in terms of when you tell me There All the Honor Lies, I remember this plot, the Sheridan murders him in Minbari in self-defense plot. The other ones, although fun, are so detached from this in many ways that I forget that they're in this specific episode. I definitely forget that all of these B plots and C plots and D plots are in the same episode.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan of this one. I have always felt it to be too dry, and especially when I was younger, I felt this was a very dry and dull episode for a main plot. Now that I'm older, I now look at it as it's very messy and contrived and convenient.
Yeah.
I say 24, but the way this wraps up reminds me not of 24, but of Scooby-Doo. This is a Scooby-Doo type ending where the bad guy confesses to a thingamabob and then the group come in all one after the other and they're like, here's my thing. They might as well have unmasked and said, oh my God,
well, we do get an unmasking.
Yeah, we do get an unmasking.
It's just a bit earlier.
If they unmasked a Sean and went, you're bad, ooh, then it would have been a Scooby-Doo plot. So I'm not a huge fan of all the honor lies, and it has been one of my least favorites of season 2 because
it's a drop.
I also don't like what it does for Sheridan as a character. I think it puts dirt on him that is incredibly hard to wash off, and the episode proceeds to think that it does wash it off. When you think of the implications of the commander of the captain of Babylon 5 having murdered an alien, especially one that already has bad blood between them, you would think there would be bigger ramifications in this, long-lasting ramifications of this. But no, by the end, it's just like...
It's wrapped up, it's done.
This is like any other sci-fi show where it's like, this is self-contained.
Oh, but it has a jab at Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and Star Trek in general. And it is also calling back to previous episodes. So it's trying to have it both ways. Is this self-contained enough where Sheridan can do this thing and it won't matter in the future? Or is it actually interconnected enough where us calling back to season 1 and season 2 earlier on actually is important? And will this be important? And I find it a real mess of an episode.
I can't stay. I can't stay. Now that's comedy. Bye-bye.
Peter David wrote this one. Do you remember the previous episode Peter David wrote for Babylon 5? He wrote Soulmates, the Londo Wives episode. That's the one he wrote.
Yeah.
Which
I remember that episode. I'm just like in my head comparing the two and being like, oh yeah, I get that same feel in some of the bits, but not that much.
We praise and criticize some guest writers for what they do on the show.
What's up, Larry?
Hey, Larry. No, we love Larry. DC Fontana, she could be hit or miss on B5.
No, I'm saying, hey, what's up, Larry? He's in the corner.
Oh, hi, Larry.
Hi.
Oh, hey, buddy. We'll get to you soon. We'll do Knives one day, and we'll talk to you. You just hang back there. We're not talking about you. We're talking about Peter David. Yeah, Larry. You got.
But I'm here.
Hey, Larry. We'll credit you anyway. But you just sit tight. We'll get to you in a few weeks. But
Do I have to stay in the corner?
No one puts Larry in the corner.
You kept me in the corner this whole time, Ryan.
But Peter David is an interesting fellow. He's a writer of many things. TNG, but definitely Star Trek novelizations. He would go on to do Babylon 5 novelizations. He's done comic books. I'm not as familiar with his script work outside of B5, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. But I just wanted to highlight him because as a guest writer, we praised him for Soulmates because he really got Londo and all of those characters in that episode. And I think that's his weakness here. In this one, I would say he only gets Londo and Via. They're the only two characters that I felt this person's got it. They got the voice of these characters. And the rest of them were off or they were done through obligation. Like, he got to do the Londo episode. Now you got to do one of the other character-based episodes. And it was this big burden and sigh of, okay, I guess I'll do a Sheridan episode and the Mbryo. But he still had to work Londo into it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I can see it. It does feel... It's a very much unbalanced episode. And a part of it does feel like the characters are off. Like, they're just doing a thing. And it's just like they keep on telling us. I've studied Sheridan.
Mm-hmm.
And this does not seem like him. And same with Ivanova being like, no, this isn't like you. And
yeah.
Like, there's all of these people saying that this isn't like John. This isn't the Sheridan that we know. And it's just like lots of other things are just being told and said rather than being shown or expressed. And so much is crammed in. It's like they felt like they didn't have time to just let anything breathe.
100% I agree. One of the fascinating things that happened after this is Peter David and Bill Mumy, who plays Lanier, would go on to create a television show together called Space Cases. It's a children's show, a sci-fi wacky show. The bear in this episode makes an appearance in that one. And I don't know the history of their relationship and that show. So I've got two trains of thought here. Maybe he was invested in writing this episode for his friend Bill Mumy. So this is a Lanier episode. We get a lot of Lanier action here. And or maybe he met Bill Mumy through this experience. You know, they had the writers on the set often for B5. He's a nerdy guy, Peter David, so obviously you want to talk to the kid from Lost in Space and Twilight Zone, so obviously you would gravitate towards him, and maybe they met, had a good connection and went off to create a project together. I have no understanding of how they met and formed their creative bond together, but they do have one that would pay off a year after this episode. Space Cases would come to be. And so I wonder if Peter David is either a guy in this show who was like, I can write for Londo because I really like that character, and was then obliged to write another episode, but he wasn't allowed to do another Londo one. Thus we get this. Or if it is, maybe he wanted to write this episode very much so as a big Lanier piece. And the Minbari we know to be a very dry and complex and often cold race to write for. We know other writers like DC Fontana with the first episode with Naroon. That episode is very, very distant and very exposition heavy because the Minbari are very, I don't know, they're very tough to write scripts for, I think, for a lot of guest writers. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It does seem that a lot of people that have trouble finding their footing with the characters across the board. And we've discussed that a lot. It just sometimes it's hard to not be reductive, I guess, and just say, well, JMS just knows these characters too well. And you can tell when it's not his voice because it always feels different. And thus, like, us having watched the show a number of times can often pick out scenes where we're like, JMS definitely touched that up.
You mean the Kosh scene? Yeah. or the teddy bear scene at the end? 100%. I've actually got a quote about the teddy bear. So are you at all familiar about the teddy bear's history? So do you want to first lead us up to what is the teddy bear?
So one of the subplots of this episode.
One of the strands.
Yeah, one of the many strands.
This is the first strand type episode of Babylon 5, yes.
Is Ivanova is in charge of the gift shop that's opened up. So there's a Babylon 5 Emporium.
Yeah, she's at least got to investigate it.
She's got to keep an eye on it. It's opened up. It's an idea for revenue boosting and that sort of shit. And she goes in. She has a nice, cute little scene where she sees people
buying stuff,
and then
wearing masks of other races. It's all like, haha, look at our makeup.
And we see her walk past a bear.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I've never actually noticed that until this watch. The bear is set up.
The bear is set up. Bear is set up early on in the episode, and then near the end of the episode. It's like basically the last scene.
Yeah, it's them congratulating each other for solving their plots.
Yep. It's just like, okay, the gift shop is no longer...
It's fine. The gift shop's cool. Like, Ivanova's like, I'm cool with the gift shop. Look, I got a bear.
Like, Londo was not happy because he wasn't given dicks on his doll.
Mm-hmm.
So his merchandise was already off the table. And Ivanova dealt with that, and she has the bear.
Yes.
And then Sheridan discovers that the bear is meant to be him.
JS.
So he spaces the teddy bear.
Uncharacteristically gets very angry at something that's very fun and cute. I always thought that was weird, but then I go, oh, he's been very angry in this episode. Sometimes Sheridan gets angry and then that's his mood. But here's the reason, Rachel, okay? Are you prepared? This is according to JMS himself, the Lurker's Guide. It goes as such. Here's the story of the bear. I hate cute. Everybody knows me knows that. So after buying Peter David's script number 2, Peter sends me a gift. A bear. A teddy bear. With my initials JS in front and Bear Ballon 5 in the back. So I call Peter back. I say that I must get him for this. He asks what I had in mind. I said, wait. And you're looking concerned. You're right to look concerned, Rachel. I said, wait and see. So I wrote the entire bear thing at the end of the show and inserted it into his script. Never send me something cute. And you know what? Yeah. Hearing that describes the episode entirely. We like to talk about on this podcast that the Babylon 5 is this elaborate show that is very well planned, and there's metaphors and themes and fates and prophecies and character arcs and all this stuff is meticulously planned out and isn't a hodgepodge of things. That there shows you
threw some spice in.
That there shows you otherwise, where it's like, I'm just gonna put random shit in because it's an in-joke for me. So yeah, we're gonna have a jab at Deep Space Nine, and yeah, we're gonna have a jab at probably Warner Brothers or whoever wanted them to have merchandise, and yeah, we're gonna have a jab at this. That's what this episode feels like in large part to me, is a series of in-jokes or a series of things that were floating in the minds of the writers, and they just threw them at the wall.
It doesn't feel like it was made for an audience in a weird way.
Yeah, sections of this doesn't. No, it feels like it's either made for the actors themselves to, hey, you get a scene to play it. Hey, Julie Caitlin Brown, let's bring you back to do nothing?
Yeah. Hi.
Other than not wear makeup, great to see you out of the makeup. I mean, you look like Natoth and sound like Natoth. She's Natoth, but she's a lawyer here. It would have been bold of them just to have Natoth come back and be his lawyer. Why not? I don't know. It's some crazy shit. It's just as crazy as the bear story I just told you.
May I ask what you were discussing here?
The only thing that matters. The truth.
Ah, yes. The favorite song of the legally ignorant.
We like to herald Babylon 5 as this meticulously crafted story, but in actuality, it is a show that had to fill out seasons up to 22 episodes. This is not 100% filler, but at the same time, isn't it? Isn't this a filler episode with some elaborate set dressing on top?
Yes. So, this is filler that it doesn't want to accept that it's filler. So it's pretending to be a buffer.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. It's more trying to be a buffer episode, a connecting episode, not a filler episode.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm here for a reason. I connect to other things.
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, we could talk about the Via plot that I almost forget here, or we could talk about Kosh or the gift shop, because those are more fascinating to us. But they're not full ideas. They never flourish in it. There's no real story with the gift shop. There's no real major story with Via. We get lots of character stuff with Via. We get cute gags with the gift shop, and we get a beautiful scene with the Kosh stuff that can tie into the overall thematic story being told in Babylon 5. But what this episode could have been, and whether this would work in B5, I'm not saying that this is the case, but There's an episode of The Simpsons I really love.
Okay.
Where it is, I can't remember the full title of it, but it's like there's a million stories in Springfield, and it's an episode where it's a bunch of short vignettes where we keep ping-ponging around to different characters. So, here's Apu, and he has to leave the Quickie Mart to go to this party and do all this and then come back to the Quickie Mart. Or Lisa has gum in her hair, and then Marge tries to help her by adding more things, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Or, hey, we're going to reenact Pulp Fiction, but with Police Chief Wiggum and Snake and the guy who owns the weapons store. Do you remember this episode?
Yes.
Where we don't necessarily have a plot to it, but we do have running gags, running themes, and it gives you a nicer idea of the world and the ensemble of characters.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this going, maybe this episode could have worked better if it was just a series of random little character plots that just are happening that day on Babylon 5, and maybe they have some overlap, because I'm thinking about Talia Winters. She's fucking here for some reason. And what does she do that's different to that Simpsons episode where you have a character enter a plot so that the other plot can happen?
Yeah, no.
She enters the story so that Via can start his story off more proper. Right?
Yeah.
This could have been a hangout episode instead of a buffer episode, but maybe that was too ahead of the time for B5 to do.
There's potential in this episode, but it doesn't belong here.
No, it doesn't coalesce into something strong. It is wet bread. It's just.
But you know what?
Mush.
I like the gift shop. We've kind of covered, or we probably.
I wish there was a commentary on it other than Ivanova's nagging at the beginning. That's the only commentary we get on it. There is no further thing other than like Londo has a gag about the doll and then there's the bear, but there's no commentary or anything. That's just stuff.
That's stuff that happens. Okay.
Like, I would have liked if we had this as a proper plot. I know some plot with the gift shop that actually commentates on the capitalist structure that Babylon 5 has to run on, and how even though it affects the characters personally with merchandise of them being sold, that, I don't know, that being a thing kind of comments on, well, it's a price to pay because we operate on money, even though it personally upsets me that there's a doll with my face on it. Something, but instead, here we are talking about it going, well, we've kind of talked about it, haven't we?
Yeah.
This should have been something other than Ivanova to be a mouthpiece for the writers to have a dig at Deep Space Nine and to maybe have a dig at the executives for wanting to make merchandise.
It's like, okay, this is being dropped here. Great. And the Via plot feels similar in the way that it's like, it's just slotted in here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's really nice that there's a moment to acknowledge that Londo's rising star being noticed on Centauri Prime has consequences for Via.
Yeah, in a multitude of ways, not just him being replaced, but on his soul. That's great. What if Babylon 5 had a gift shop? What if Via had a crisis about having to be shipped off and we learn more about his internal struggle with being Londo's attaché? What if Kosh trained Sheridan in ways that we don't understand, but in a way we will by the end of it? All are great ideas, and for the most part they remain great ideas. I appreciate them as ideas more so than actual things executed.
But then I'm like, well, how would I change the execution of these things? Because it's just like any one of those things, I don't know if I would want a full normal B plot with them of like Babylon 5 gets a gift shop and that's it. And, you know, Ivanova having to deal with all of these people having problems with the way that they're being portrayed.
I would want that, though. Like, okay, Drazi's fighting over colours gets more development than this. than any of these plots. That gets more raising of the stakes. There's ad break stingers of, oh no, they've escalated, yet it still always remained a goofy B plot.
Yeah.
And it rises above being a funny idea to being a memorable story. These always remain as, oh, that was a fun idea. Remember when Babylon 5 had a gift shop that time? Or, hey, remember that time that Via poured his soul out to Londo and Londo was nice to him in the end? Like, that story, the Via story, is the one that's the most well assembled. It has a beginning, middle, and end, but also I keep forgetting about it when I'm watching the episode. It keeps cutting back to Via, and I'm like, oh, right, Via's in this having a plot too, by the way. It's overstuffed, yet the things it's overstuffed with are so bare-boned. It's very strange.
You can go back home to...
To what? To my family? Do you think that if they wanted me around that I'd even be here? They just wanted me anywhere away. They had me sent here 2 years ago because, frankly, there wasn't much competition for the job. This was a joke to them.
We made comments in one of our previous episodes about how you have a Kosh thing in and you could insert it into any episode and it doesn't really matter too much. This one here we heralded in that previous discussion as a far better random weird-ass Kosh scene in which Kosh has to train Sheridan. He takes him to the worst part of Down Below and leads him into leads him into this weird little area where on the roof, like it's all these weird, I don't know how to describe it, just pieces of cloth and crap all over the roof where Sheridan has to crawl his way through this weirdly lit area, and he encounters the perfect moment of beauty. Talk us through, Rachel. I mean, what was your reaction? Do you remember what it was like to see it that first time? Because this is memorable. This is memorable.
Yeah, I just remember being confused. So many crossfades.
Yeah.
Like, the visual language of that scene, I was very confused and jarred by. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, that was a thing. Right? Sheridan seems,
happy?
Yeah.
So you were confused?
Mm-hmm. You?
Oh, 100%. I was like, what's that guy under there? Who are these guys? Are we going to see them again? Of course, I was wanting answers to this in a more obvious, concrete way, but I love this. I actually love the direction of this on this watching. The crossfades I thought were effective. I really loved the realization of you, the viewer, that there are multiple of these guys in the background slowly coming towards Sheridan, but they just look like a lump of cloth. They look like a bunch of rags and sheets, this pile, and then you realize, oh no, it's multiple groups of these in little huddles that are hovering towards him. It's a very striking image, that scene. And then the song that they're singing and the fact that it is this very alien, strange, bizarre moment that leaves you going, what the hell was that? Is really striking to me. I found it very palpable on an emotional level on this rewatch because I know who Kosh is on the rewatch, so this works better. I know where their relationship is going to go, and it was an emotional moment in an otherwise dry story for me emotionally. I enjoy seeing Sheridan just dork his way through a thing. Like,
he's such a dork.
I don't have anything to give you. And he's like explaining money to this guy, and the guy he doesn't have a face that we see. He's just like, you're trying to explain this?
Yeah.
He has to give up something of importance, basically. He gives up his rank, thematically, he's willing to give up that, and we'll see him do that in the future. What is he willing to sacrifice for this all and all of that stuff? But yeah, I found it, my favorite part of the episode. I just love Kosh as well. Like, that's the thing. You talk about it being confusing, but I also remember you just being excited that we got more Kosh stuff.
Oh, yeah. I was just, like, intensely watching that eye hole shrinking row.
Yeah, and Kosh, at this point, we feel as if we're getting answers to him, but we're not really. Like,
No,
he is
we're
actively
just seeing him more.
He's actively engaging in the plot, but we don't know what his plot is. We just don't know what it is. It is at this point when you're watching it that first time, you're going, okay, Kosh is training him and he's being a mentor to him and they're having these lessons together. And this is one of them. I don't know what any of this is, but at the same time, that's Kosh though. It's accurate to his character. Being cryptic and weird and bizarre and alien.
Absolutely.
Beauty in the dark.
Oh, must be working. You're beginning to talk just like a Vorlon.
The A-plot is just as weird and underdeveloped as the subplots for me.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh yeah. In this random episode in season 2, they try to threaten us by saying that Sheridan is no longer going to be in charge because he murdered somebody.
I'm Mbryo, warrior.
And I'm always like, okay, this is happening. And even though they keep on telling us that this is serious and this could mean like long-term consequences, it never carried or felt that heavy.
That's it. The tone of this episode, especially that plot, is still as light and fluffy as Sheridan is as a character. He's smiley, he's laughing, he gets angry, of course, but although this is a serious matter, it always feels as if it's been trivialized by the story being like the way it's being told comes across as if it's trivializing the seriousness of it all. Like, here's the zany lawyer lady who speaks like a 90s character.
Here's a comparison that I want to draw. When Sheridan gets abducted by aliens.
Yeah, in one of the previous ones.
In one of the previous episodes. I feel like that episode and that performance conveys it much better and much clearer that Sheridan doesn't know how he's going to get out of this one.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't know how he's going to make it through.
Probably with a pipe.
Determination and grit and strength of who he is holds strong and allows him to power through.
Yeah.
And you would think that this episode would work that way of like his honor and his integrity is being questioned. But it never feels like he's struggling through it in the same way. Like, he doesn't feel beaten down. It's just like, yeah, Sheridan's still his chirpy self. He's going along business as usual.
He's still actively captain.
Yeah. And it's just like, but you want me to believe that next episode we might not have him and you're treating it in this way?
Yeah.
You want me to feel the fear when he is not feeling afraid?
Yeah, to talk about Sheridan, the Sheridan front of the story, before we even get into the cultural side of this event, the impact this would make culturally, to talk about the Sheridan side of it, you're right. He is got no stakes to him other than this empty threat that he won't be captain next episode, and we know that won't be the case. If anything, I draw a comparison to Eyes with Sinclair, where Ari Benzain took over the station. There was threat there. There was actual consequences and stakes. Sinclair lost power there. He had to work around the system, read the rules, ask this person to do this. He had to micromanage and still maintain this air of, I am doing everything in my power, but I'm calm and collective. I'm not upset. There was nuances there. Here, Sheridan is an idiot because he naively believes that everybody will do the right thing. Yet previously, in the last episode, we had a lady come in and waste a bunch of time in Hunter Prey convincing him, remember that the world is terrible? And he goes, I don't trust anyone, not even you. So where is Sheridan at? Is he the smiley, naive guy who believes everyone's going to do the right thing? Or is he the guy that's actually aware of the corruption of the people around him and the world around him, and he's actually a cynic who collects dark government secrets? Which is he? This episode doesn't want to be decisive on either one and tries to have him both ways, where he's cocky and smart but not really enough. He is a dum-dum in this episode. This makes him look like a fool throughout the entire thing. The only character that I would say is intelligent in all of this is Garibaldi. Garibaldi's the only one with sense in this. He keeps bringing up all these valiant, great points about if you
Franklin seems to be doing some good doctoring.
He just does his job. He doesn't give too much of an opinion on what's going on. Garibaldi, he keeps mentioning, if you do this, this will happen. Then it does. And it's so frustrating to watch.
Just the fact that we can draw on multiple examples where the feeling or the experience of this plot has been done better in Babylon 5 when we're a little over halfway through the second season.
Yeah.
We know how high the bar can be, which makes this feel even lower.
One of the aspects that is infuriating to me, and I think to many people, is you can't help but draw this to real-world comparisons. Obviously, there's lots of things to be talked about there when it comes to police or military figures shooting people and being able to get away with it. Oh, it was self-defense or this or this or this, right? It's a very, very touchy subject, and I don't think that this episode even has any awareness that it is touching that. Right? Because when I think of this, I think of obviously many situations of people of color being shot by police or by the military or whatever it is, because of whatever bigotry or whatever circumstances they are. Oh, we shot the unarmed black man and then the cop is allowed to get away with it. That's what I think of when I watch this. But I don't think they had any idea that would be something that people would think about.
No, the implications of the plot weren't explored, and you can feel you feel that lacking in the A plot of Sheridan's experience. But it also echoes what you were saying about the gift shop, that they don't deal with the full the repercussions of the fact that they need more money because the government will not fund them effectively.
Yeah, the government
because
sucks.
It works within capitalism.
You know, I was thinking this might work out after all. We could use the extra money to defray operating expenses. What is that?
Take a look.
Babylon 5? Oh, he's a cutie, isn't he?
This episode has no comprehension on its touching upon these real-world issues that were present then and are really present now.
Yeah, they're very much in the consciousness of the general public worldwide.
And it wants to distract you with the evil alien Mbryo race that were former enemies have formed a scheme. It's a conspiracy against our good, noble hero, Sheridan. It doesn't want to dirty him up. Say what you know what? People have shit-talked Sinclair. They were willing to dirty Sinclair up. They were willing to do things to Sinclair and make him look bad in front of other aliens and whatever, and actually have him be upfront as a character that because of his trauma in the war and his PTSD, he still has some bigotry within him against the Mbryo. They are actually willing to get dark and gritty with Sinclair. Sheridan,
You want your sci-fi to grapple with ideas?
Sheridan, when it
This episode ain't here for that.
Sheridan, when it is in relation to the Mbryo, it comes across as they're shy of it. This is a guy who we get explained in this episode. He destroys the Black Star. We knew that. We get explained in this episode that he did it in a very dubious manner. One that you could argue is a war crime, by the way. He used a fake distress signal and brought them in and then nuked them and killed all of them. And we know him to be proud of that. We know him to be a man who is still behind that decision. And there's arguments to be made of whether or not it's a war crime and whether or not it was right or wrong. But to the eyes of the Mbryo, he's a war criminal. That's dirt that the show doesn't really want to play around with at the moment. In this episode, he comes out clean at the end.
It's just like whenever they bring up him as Starkiller, it always feels odd. It always feels like it's a hot potato that they don't know what to do with.
My question. His Starkiller. The title, the story, the reputation behind it. Is it cool?
No, I don't think it's that cool.
No. Not what you think. In the show. Like, is it cool that he's Starkiller?
No, I see it as, it's usually just a pain.
Okay, interesting, because to me, this comes across as one of those, how do we make our character cool? Yeah, he was this war hero, and they called him Starkiller, and he did this badass move where he mined an asteroid field and killed them all, and yeah, it's awesome. And we got Tron to play him, and he's this all-American boy with that accent, and he has love of oranges, and he does salutes, and he has the nice haircut. I think it's supposed to be cool.
I think it's supposed to be cool, but you asked me what I thought of it.
And that's what I mean. There's a disconnect there. To me, I don't think it's supposed to be cool, but in the text, there are people who have problems with it, but as people who create the show, it comes across as shorthand of, isn't it kind of cool? We call him Starkiller. He has a cool nickname. He has a cool war story background that us sci-fi fans who like cool characters can fist pump and go, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Unlike Sinclair, who wanted to kill himself because he saw the death of the human race and was mentally traumatized from the war. That was lame, because that guy had a very monotone voice. Now we have the cool guy with the cool haircut, the sexy raspy voice, who's Starkiller, and he can just shoot Mbryo and get away with it at the end. That's what I get from this episode, and it is very confronting because that's not the point of the series, but this episode really muddles it up of they look at Sheridan in a certain way that they think is cool and badass, and it is so unfair of the Mbryo to make this elaborate conspiracy to damn him for things that they believe to be injustice.
Yeah. An idea popped into my head when you were saying that, which is, it kind of seems like, a teenage boy's backstory for his D&D character.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, he's a hardened soldier. He's Starkiller.
And his wife died. And he doesn't know how to deal with it, but he's going to do it the best way he can. And yeah, he killed the Mbryo, but in the future, he's going to marry one of them. Doesn't that sound awesome? And we're going to give him a goatee and he'll be the president of the galaxy. I noted down something. I don't know if anyone talks about this because I don't know if anyone remembers Crusade as a television series, but I think that JMS took one of the stories from this episode and gave it to Gideon.
Okay.
In this one, he talks about being stranded in his Star Fury during the war, and it was this traumatic thing, and he learned a thing. that exact same story is given to Gideon in Crusade.
Okay. I just
wanted to point that out. It's just one of those little details where it's not as if another character couldn't have that story, but it is interesting. It is interesting that a Sheridan story is one of the defining stories of Gideon. It's very strange to me.
Ringing endorsement for Crusade.
That and the music. Oh, that music in Crusade, huh, people? Oh, boy. It is time for our Actors Spotlight section of the show, in which we talk about an actor or actress that featured in the episode. We go over what they were in the story, what we thought of their performance, and we give some extra pieces of information about said actor, what else they've starred in, what we've seen them in, any interesting pieces of trivia. We are, of course, looking at Rachel. Rachel, we're looking at you. We're looking at you, Rachel. Now, of course, we're actually looking at the actor of Ashon, who is played by, I do believe, Sean Sullivan.
Yes, but for much of his career, he was known as Sean Gregory Sullivan.
Oh.
Not a bit to avoid confusion with the Canadian actor, Sean Sullivan.
Who's that Sean Sullivan?
He was in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, okay, so we're doing two Seans for the price of one today.
And not to be confused with the Sean Sullivan from the Foo Fighters.
Oh, we're doing multiple Sean. 3. We got up to 3. Any other famous Sean Sullivans that we've got here? I'm going to come out and say it. I think that this performance is missing key elements here.
Like?
He's acting against Bill Mumy, who is probably giving...
Bill Mumy is doing circles around him?
He's doing the best performance that he's done in the show. Bill Mumy. Say what we will about the A-plot, but Bill Mumy is crushing it here.
Crushing it.
He's menacing, he's funny, he's wise, he's sad, he's noble. He's everything you want.
So many layers and depth. Like...
He's alien?
Yes. But I really appreciate, like, sometimes I don't like these moments. They're scattered throughout the whole show. I see them, and I think you see them, of Linnea saying that he loves and is in love with Delenn, but not with the actual words that he's saying.
Yeah.
Like when he says that she's honorable, it's him saying, I love her.
I don't mind that. It's just we know where it goes.
It's like some of those moments are like they work for us and in the moment. Like that moment for me worked in this episode, but there's been ones in the previous ones where it's just like, oh, fuck it, we get it.
Well,
You got a bone on your head and a bone in your pants, Linnea. Just work it out.
But my point being is this actor of Sean has to play the dark mirror to Linnea.
Yeah.
He is a part of his clan. He looks like him in many ways. He's supposed to be this reflection back on the character of Linnea. And his performance is...
lackluster?
It's too, I'm obviously evil.
Yeah. Like,
we get it. He's a racist. He doesn't like Delenn. He doesn't like humans. He's very snooty like other Mbryo. But it isn't thrilling to watch in a mystery.
No.
Where we know that he's obviously in on it. He's obviously evil. He's obviously a bad dude. It's just... And when you have the ability to have him commentate on the Linnea character who we like, to show that there are other people within Linnea's clan that feel differently to him, but also they should have something in common. They don't even have anything in common other than the superficial title of they're in the same clan.
Yeah, and it's just like that doesn't feel like anything to us. It's just like, oh, they keep on saying the word clan and their title and whatever. And it's just like, oh yeah, we did already know that, but so what?
This guy, Sean Sullivan, does, I don't want to bash him because I think he does a good job playing a weasel.
You see why he got the part.
And you see why he plays it that way.
Yeah, you don't get the sense that this is all that could be done with this performance.
It's the script's fault. Because as an actor, there's no other direction he could have gone with this. The script is demanding a weasel. And that's what we get. He's a little weasel.
Pop goes the weasel.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Pop goes a weasel. Pop goes a Sean. That's what's required of him. And it isn't fun to watch after a while, especially on a rewatch value where
like,
we know that there are so many...
Bland.
In
the
pantheon of Mbryo performances and characters, this is near the bottom because it is lacking that complexity and nuance. Naroon was a weasel in his first episode, but he had so much more behind him as well that made him memorable and want to be seen again. This guy, they hired him, and no offense to the man, because he has a very, very punchable face.
Yes.
Very punchable face. He's got a good sneer. He's got a good condescending tone of voice. He's very good at this, but it is not. I think it is a misfire of direction here from the script for this character, especially if we're going to relate it to Linnea. If there was a dark mirror to Linnea here, that's what should be here, but no. It fails in my book. I don't blame the actor, but his performance is there. He's doing what is required of him, but what is required of him does not bring us joy. It does not fulfill us.
No. He'd done a number of things before this.
Yeah.
This was not his first rodeo. He has a total of 49 credits. One of his most recent ones was The Umbrella Academy.
I want to note that down. We have yet to watch The Umbrella Academy, but from what I understand, he plays the varying older versions of the character of Five.
Yes.
Who, I don't know if I'm correct. I think that character is the one who's a child, like a teen out of their group. Like he's the guy that looks like he's always 14, 15 years old eternally. I don't know that show well enough. I could be wrong. But that's neat that he's still acting today. He's still out there doing this stuff.
Yeah, still doing some stuff.
In a pretty well-known show.
He mostly does TV with a couple of movies scattered throughout. His first credit, though, was Fame in the TV show. I've seen him in Wayne's World.
That is where I knew him. I saw his face and I could see those eyes, and I remember thinking, I know those eyes. He's in Wayne's World. He's their friend that they pick up and they headbang with him in the back of the car singing Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's going to be sick. He's their goofy friend that is drunk out of his mind, and that's what I will know him for, as, hey, we had people from Bill and Ted last week. This week we have a guy from Wayne's World. I can't wait to see what next episode has, like what wacky comedy guy we're going to have next week. I can't wait.
And then the other thing of note that I wanted to bring up that we've both seen him in is Quantum Leap. Do you remember what episode of Quantum Leap he was in?
I don't remember the title, but I did read the IMDb description, and it is probably one of the funniest descriptions.
The Beast Within.
The Beast Within. Do you have the IMDb description in front of you? It's pretty funny.
I don't have it in front of me, but it's basically Sam as a Vietnam vet
is mistaken for
a Bigfoot in Washington.
Mm-hmm. He's mistaken for Bigfoot. Sam
He's
is a
mistaken for Bigfoot. It's the Bigfoot episode of Quantum Leap, and it is delightful.
I'm pretty sure they confirm
Bigfoot.
they can in that show. They confirm aliens, vampires, mummies, and Bigfoot.
Quantum Leap goes for it.
Oh, and the
I'm
devil.
fucking here for it.
Let's not forget,
Fucking
and
here
the
for
devil,
it.
most likely.
Oh
too.
yeah, no.
But guys, it's a science fiction show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to say about him, unfortunately. I mean, he does look like a Weasley version of Bill Mooney in the makeup. Yeah. He wears the bone well, I shall say, because there's some people who don't. He did. Mm-hmm. He looked like, yeah, that's right.
Your words insulted her.
Her presence insulted me. Because we are the same, you may ask your questions. If you can tolerate the answers.
This episode is a yum from me.
Yeah. It's a yum from me. I'm ready to hear what we'll be talking about next time on Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
And now, forward. Episode 15. According to the DVD, it goes as such. Who could have imagined an interstellar news network crew would present as non-Centauri relations erupt into a deadly conflict? Keep those cameras rolling. This ought to be your rating smash. I love that it's written like it's for the news. That's cute.
Yep.
You know what? That's probably the best description we've ever had in terms of it matches for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And now for a word. People, we're done. We're dusted. We'll be back next time to talk about that one. So make sure to watch that episode in the interim to make sure to give it a good looking over. Of course, we can be found on all of those social media platforms. Yes, isn't that right, Rachel?
YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. And if you cannot wait a full week to hear more of us, you could join the Patreon, where we have lots and lots
of content.
Including...
Well, we have multiple tiers. If you join our lowest one, you can get our Thoughts On series, in which we give our thoughts on things, whether they be video games, TV shows, podcasts, movies, board games even. We have touched upon so many Doctor Who. We've touched upon even The Mandalorian at one point. There's so much there. We are doing the X-Men movies as well. Once a month, we watch one of those Fox X-Men movies, whether they be the mainstay X-Men or something like Deadpool or even New Mutants at some point in the future. And of course, we are going through Star Trek Picard. We have been working our way through Picard, and we're going to work our way through Strange New Worlds as well as they come out. So if you are curious to hear our thoughts on what New Trek is giving us, come on over to the Patreon, where you can also be a part of a group Discord. If you have not already rated and reviewed us on whatever podcatcher you use, make sure to do so. It is greatly appreciated. It would boost our egos a little bit, but also we just would like it. It would be nice if you could do that. You can also email us at yumyumpod@gmail.com with your questions, queries, thoughts, and concerns. All of this is where, Rachel? Where do we have all this information in case people haven't written it all down?
Well, we make it nice and easy for you by putting this all in the description.
Yep, so you can just press the description and it's all there, ready to go. Who was ready to go? Jakar, but he was so ready to go that he didn't show up in this episode.
They were wusses. They didn't show us the Jakar dildo that we know that was in that gift shop.
Gives a whole new meaning to good eating.
Oh, you know they stock the whole pouch.
With the Jakar dildo, would it be his head as the head of the penis? Would that be...
Nah, I think it's
or is a replica of his penis?
A replica of his penis.
I was thinking that it's like...
Jakar's
body, but in the shape of a dildo.
Like, there's the clonodongs, is a thing.
I don't know what those words, cloner dongs?
Yes. So where people clone their penises, like make a dildo
they make a
of
mold,
their own
right.
cock. You know that Jakar would do that.
Look. He would not only do that, but he would insist on their attaché getting it done for them. That's why Natoth left. That's why she stopped showing up.
They need funds for the war effort. Just saying.
Yeah. They need cloner cocks for the war effort. That's what they need. And they need somebody to be brave enough to say good eating to you.
Good eating to you.